So thank you for coming, guys, to our Flowpoint demonstration. This is a flowable grout. So for those that haven't used it before, I think I was chatting to yourself, it can be quite scary when you're putting down a cementitious material over thousands of pounds worth of stone. Now, depending on the type of stone that you guys use, porcelain is perfect for it because you put it down, no sooner have you put it down, you're taking it straight back off again. So what most people get a little bit concerned about is how long we leave it on the surface for. So if you're putting it onto Indian sandstone or cobbles or things like this, rather than getting on it straight away, what we have to actually do is allow the material to set and firm up in the joint first before we then wash. So this is a material that's used on commercial projects up and down the UK, everywhere. It's now been used quite widely in the domestic market. Now I was chatting to Rob, and Rob was saying, look, when we're doing work in the domestic market, why we're using certain types of products. So in the public realm area, BS 7533 is a specification for how you install natural stone paving, etc. So it covers things like strength of the bedding material, primer itself, and then it covers the grouts. Now at the moment, it does not include domestic. However, it's about to come in. So BS 7533 as a specification is about to now start hitting domestic markets as well. So Instamac or Ultrascape already have that range of materials. Obviously this is just about the Flowpoint side, but when we're talking about strength gain, just so you guys know how strong Flowpoint is, standard family car probably weighs about 1.5 ton, maybe 2 ton if it's a sort of 4x4. Now, for us to comply with specifications in the public realm area, Flowpoint that you're going to see today will cope with 50 ton. So a fully loaded Arctic only weighs 44. So this is extremely strong. Now, when it comes to porcelain, the process is just going to be wet the area down first. I'm just going to get my pedalo, wet it all down, just helps it to stop it from sticking to the surface. It will glide into the joints. No sooner have we done that, I'm then going to mix the product up. So it's 4.25 litres per bag. So if you don't want to measure out, with a litre or 2 litre jug every time, just get a gauging bucket, put in 4.25, maybe drill a hole in it. Or if you want to do 2, obviously 2, then drill a hole. So you can never overfill that material. Now that's important because if you're having Flowpoint with excess water compared to others, you'll get a change in colour slightly. So more water means it's going to be a slightly lighter colour. Also increases your chances of efflorescence. So it's a simple case of 4.25, pour it in, mix it up, tip it down, and then we're going to use the pedalo today just to sort of take it off straight away. Only difference is being, if you're using a natural stone and you've got a pressure washer, I would suggest using a pressure washer to take it off as opposed to a hose. So you've typically got pressure washer one side, coming down to a hose then, coming down to a bucket of water. And weirdly, if you're using buckets of water, you'll use more water than if you use a hose, and you'll use less water if you then use a pressure washer as well. Now in terms of where we wash off to, this is a cementitious material. If you push it down drains, whether that's linear or any other type of drain, it will set somewhere and you'll block the drains up. So if you're having a total garden renovation, for instance, do the paving first, grout the area, push it off the edge, and then whatever's left there, dig it up, fresh topsoil down, and then turf. If the turfing has already, let's say it's an established garden, turfing's already been done, cut off maybe a foot of grass, flip it over, dig some of that soil out, push that excess into that sump area then, and same again, get rid of fresh topsoil and tip it back again. If you're doing a courtyard and you've got 4 different walls now and you can't wash it anywhere, that's where things like pedalos, Bertas come in handy because it controls that water. So everything stays, all the water that I'm going to potentially take off goes back into that bucket, and then you can tip that bucket somewhere else and job done. But it shouldn't go down the drains. We were chatting before, me and Rob, if anybody wants to have a play with this material and help me as we do, it's not a massive area, so there's not an awful lot to sort of play about with. But if you want to have a little play, see what it feels like on the squeegee, etc., that'd be good. This is a recommended piece of kit. So this squeegee here, this is a neoprene squeegee. So if you haven't felt one of these before, if you want to feel it and touch it, it's like a wetsuit type material. So if you to get your hands on, so we say a solid rubber squeegee, what will happen is as you're trying to pull it across, it sort of skips over the top. it leaves more material on the surface, which then means you have to then get rid of more material to finish. Plus it also means that you're not maximising what you bought because it stays on the top as opposed to going into the joints. So that's recommended piece of kit, neoprene squeegee. When it comes to what type of paddle, anything that looks like that's going to be good. And that type of paddle there, as it spins, it's designed, if you mix it in a bucket or similar, to push liquids down and then they'll float back up again like this. Whereas other paddles that are designed for mixing may be stiffer mortar mixes, like a helix type paddle. It'll still work, but they're specifically for mortars, so it pulls material upwards and then drops it back down again, as opposed to pushing down and lifting up. So this,
there's no issue like with other grouts, you know, adding too much air into the mix. You know, that's not on this case.
No, as long as you're not using something like a bird cage, which people use for like floor levelers, and they're designed to smash it around the side of the book. As long as you're not using stuff like that, that's perfect. Doesn't have to be Ruby, it can be anybody else, but that's perfect. Now I've already put in 4.25 litres of water into my bucket. So that's already gone into there.
It's pretty safe. It's actually sandstone.
Is that sandstone? Yeah, it'll be fine.
You're talking about the chip wash down here?
No. We'll be okay. Yeah, when you're using like proper ribbon stuff, that's when it potentially sticks to the surface. For what we're doing, that's smooth enough that it's just gonna, it'll come off with that. Obviously not an awful lot absorbs into porcelain, to be quite honest with you. But when you've got very porous sandstone or similar, you want as much water on it as possible. What will happen is all these sandstone pieces have the potential to act like a sponge. So you put a flowable grout on top, if you haven't pre-soaked, that sponge then starts drawing moisture out of the product, and that then increases the chance of shrinkage cracking. Because weirdly, think about it, that bag of cement down there, there's no water in it, it doesn't do anything. It needs the water in there to get it to work. And if you take the water out of it too quickly, that's when it's potentially going to cause you a problem.
We seal all of our patios prior to grouting or pointing. Would you suggest to do the seal before?
I'd base that on the textured surface. So some sealers are, so you don't have to do it to get it to come off. It will come off regardless. However, some sealers will make it come off as if it is porcelain. You'll feel the difference. Some of it will literally be sort of sticking to the surface and you're having to wash it off. Other ones it will then just glide through. So I base that on porosity of the stone and textured finish of that stone. Now we do this in a couple of different variations. I've only got one to show you today, apologies. And the one I've got to show you today has got little bits in. So it goes very well with sort of natural paving, with cobbles, with more English heritagey type stuff. So that's what we're going to show you today. We then do an eco version, and that's got recycled glass in, 20% recycled glass, and you'll see green and brown flecks in it. If you know what you're looking for, you have to know what you're looking for. But if you've got clients that prefer using recycled materials, or if it's public realm works where you have to put in recycled materials to win tenders, that's why we slotted that one in. We then do a smooth, which removes the larger flecks that you're going to see today. I say large, they're only 2mm flecks. It removes those larger flecks and replaces it with a bit more sand, so it's smooth. And then we do a fine grade material as well that looks more like a tile grout when finished. So we've got all different types. We then do it currently in 3 different colours. We do what we call as natural grey, which looks more like a grey / buff sort of in the middle. If you've got some samples, that'd be perfect.
When you wet down the patio, what happens if you've got standing water in the cracks?
So, and this typically applies to, so with natural stone, it will dissipate either down or into the stone itself. You won't ever really fill up natural stone itself, it'll just dissipate. Porcelain, if you use the full bed underneath, that's like, let's say it's a 3-to-1 mix or similar, water's not then going to go down and it won't get absorbed into the porcelain, it will sit within the joints. So if you do have standing water, just get yourself a leaf blower and just blow it out. 1, you've got discoloration. 2, you're weakening that mix. So you could potentially put in maybe 50% more water by just having a very small amount in the cracks. What that will present itself as is you'll get solid material at the bottom. The top of it will almost go soft. And in the wintertime, what you find is the top then flakes off. So if you ever see it where you're getting these almost look like shards coming off, it's typically because we've overwatered it at that point. So let's just talk about what I would class as overwatering. I could put too much in the bucket before we even start, and there I've overwatered it per bag. So 4.25, anything above that is potentially overwatering. I can then have standing water in the joints, like we've just said, in which case I could be overwatering that joint by 50% each time. It's got nowhere to go. But then the time that we take it off as well is potentially overwatering. So if we're using it on natural sandstone, and we know that I put it down, squeegeed it all over, I now need to leave it 20 minutes at 20 degrees before I start to wash, and I don't give it that time because I start to get a bit of a squeaky bum, I haven't quite used it before, and I get in after 10 minutes, the more water you add in at that point, because it's weaker on the surface, that water adds in, and typically you'll get patchiness. You'll have some areas that look the right colour, other areas will then be lighter shades of colour, and the more water you add in to begin with, that then increases the chance you're getting efflorescence coming from underneath.
So you say 20 minutes, surely that's the temperature.
Yeah, 20 minutes at 20 degrees. So as soon as you get out, let's say you're down at 5, you might find you have an hour to work with it. If it's 25 and above, you might find as soon as you've mixed and poured your product out, it's get it off again. So rather than giving yourself a headache and trying to do it at midday in the summer, you do the grouting at 6 o'clock in the morning when it's nice and cool and get it done that way. There are certain little tips and tricks you can do. This is, you won't find this on data sheets. You won't find if you phone through to our technical helpline, they're going to give you this because I won't. But if you can increase the temperature of the water, if it's approaching, let's say 3 degrees, if you can increase the temperature of the water, it will go off faster for you. So I put in, that's 4.25. I've put in 2 litres of boiling water before and 2 litres of tap water before, and it's been minus temperatures and it goes off in 5 minutes. But you've got to be prepared that it's going to go off fast. Now what I typically say, say you use this in the winter months, and the first time you use it, you go, oh, do you know what, I've had about an hour and 20 minutes to play with it for it to wash off. The next time you use it, let's say it's in the summer, you're not going to get that hour and 20 minutes. So mix a bag, put it down, time it. And when I'm talking about consistency, this is the same sort of thing that Gordon Ramsay uses, I think it's Gordon Ramsay, uses for his steaks, if you know about steaks. So you put your finger and thumb together here, and your thumb muscle there is quite loose. So if you wash off there, potential chance of overwatering it, no good. Next one down, so that's like medium rare, this one. Next one down, do you know what, that might be getting to a medium. Next one down, okay, that's medium well. And the next one down from that, now that the joint is firm, that's like well done. And we're looking for that consistency before you wash off. If you wash off sooner than that, it's going to be a problem for you at some point. Having said all that, if you've got a pressure washer, you can leave it past that point and it will blow off the surface. If you were to go back the next day, it won't wash off the surface. You need to be getting it within that set window.
So, for example, if that was the case where an area got missed or whichever, and it was left, would you use a product like a lithium product to lift it off the slab after wetting the joint, or is it something that you can't get to that point? How would you be able to rectify that if that happened?
If it's, let's say it's solid material, you've squeegeed it everywhere and just left it, you can try Lithofen. Lithofen, proper cementitious ones, like appropriate for the slab will work. People like LTP, that works. Feeler, those types, but make sure you're using the right cleaner for the stone. Because obviously some, like an acid based, might be okay on a porcelain style, but it's not going to be okay on a soft sandstone, it'll just eat into it. So make sure you get a recommendation from them. This is what I've used, this is what I've done, that's the stone, and they'll give you what they think is best for that point. So these bags, we've just gone through a packaging change for us, and we put a lot more technology into these bags. So these bags are now, this is a wax-proof paper, so if you've got open top vehicles, this will now withstand a certain amount of rain as the day goes on. And because we've changed that packaging, it means we can also change the way it actually opens. So I've spent years and years and years telling people to use this flap, shake it out, put it up and open it from the bottom. Now we've got this nice handy little thing here that says open here. So this is like a biscuit, way to open biscuits. That little red bit comes out. It then very cleanly opens up. We then have a pull here section. So we then pull. So we're just giving this stone a little bit of water. So we've got 4.25 litres in there. So we're going to use a full bag of material.
How many square metres of bag do we?
If you were doing 100 by 100 by 100 cobbles, you'll get about half a square metre per bag. Something like this, you're putting it up as a maybe 15 square metres per bag. So what we're looking to do, mix it so we've got no dry bits of powder in the bag. If it's winter time, mix it for maybe 5 minutes. Daylight today, that's pretty much done. So now what we've got to do is just work it into all the different joints. This is when we find out if we've got spot beds or similar.
So what's the minimum joint size on?
So this one will be 5 to 6 mil, which is what we've got. Smooth is 4 mil, and then fine is 3 mil. Would someone mind pouring a little bit more down for me? Put it there. Yep, that'll do. So we're just going to work it into the joints. Yeah, we just need a tad more here. That'll do. So now what we do is we go across the stone itself, roughly 45 degrees. You don't have to do that on porcelain. When we say 20 minutes at 20 degrees, it's so that when you're waiting for that consistency, if you were to get on the pressure washer, you're not bringing it off with the pressure washer. By using a device such as one of these, the sponge itself will never go lower than the top of the stone. Now you'll see I'm trying to go across the joints at a 45-degree angle. That's going to limit how much of that joint comes away. So if you go with the joint, there's more chance of pulling it from it. So everything's across. But we've got maybe 3/4 of a bag left to give you an idea on area size. So one bag would have probably done maybe 4 bays for this style.
So on like a bigger, say you're using a bigger joint, like on Indian sandstone between 12 and 15 millimeters, would you use a striker to strike it in at all, or would it be just a wipe off?
It's going to depend on what the client wants. So you could always, if you wanted to strike it off and put like an iron across it, you can do if you want to, not that you have to. You could also potentially put it into a watering can and pour it in if it's a wider cobble.
You don't have to strike it off, is what I'm saying. You don't have to put pressure on it. You don't have to compact it in. It does it. Does it, all on its own. So the difference between striking it, what would the difference be? So it's not for longevity or anything like that. It would be just for client's preference.
Yeah.
And would you get a smoother finish? You would allow that to go off a wee bit and then strike, or?
Yes, if I was doing it that way, that's when you want to hit it about the 20-minute mark at 20 degrees, just to try and push it in. You wouldn't then see any of the bits that are in this because you haven't agitated the top joint. So it would literally just be, the only benefit will be the fact that, well, mind you, the benefit of this is you can do it all standing up. Obviously, if you've then got to strike it, you're either bent over or you're back on your knees again to try and do it that way.
But it has no benefit to the product.
No.
How would it work with Dutch clay pavers, like the pavers with such surface as them? How would that fare with cleaning that off?
Yeah, it's been used with that sort of stuff before. You have to make sure that everywhere's dampened down first. You're probably going to use it. You're standing them on end, or you're...
They're like a header course around.
So, yeah, they've been used at Birmingham University, the exact way you're talking about it now. We'll have a case study somewhere that I can show you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Just it's a case of wet everything down, install it, and I think they used a pressure washer just to clean it off the top.
Once it's set in the joint, then you pressure wash it off.
The joints, yeah.
So I mean, sealing that product would be a lot better. I mean, that would definitely be helping to seal it first.
It will help. It's not needed.
Okay.
It'll still work. I've only ever found one type of stone that I wouldn't use this on, and that was this. It was a very white, almost bright white Spanish sandstone. And we went down to this guy's house in London to have a play about with it. And as soon as I got there, I said, look, I wouldn't do this because water was leaving marks on it. So we tried a very small area and then suggested that he didn't use it with it. But that's one time in 18 years that I've suggested not to do it. Everything else it works with. We'll just get those last little bits off, and then the bits that you see are sand, and then the smaller bits are aggregate, and they'll just come straight off afterwards with a brush.
What if you had a bigger area, sort of like over 100 square meters, like 150? Then obviously you can only knock up a certain amount of time. Would you personally just knock up what you need to do to get the job done, or would you be looking at grouting sections at a time?
How many people will be there with you?
Usually 2 of us, maybe 3rd round sometimes.
I potentially mix the full bag, get the full bag out. It depends on the type of stone, but if it's, say, porcelain, you can just get on it straight away and take it back off again. So restrict yourself to doing single bags to start with until you're used to how the material behaves. You'll probably find that one will do a much more manageable area, and then it's just sort of getting used to that product.
Then would you have to wait for that first batch to fully cure before you run on with the second one, or
No.
just keep going?
The only thing you've got to think about with doing stuff like that is day joints. So let's say you've grouted all day, you still haven't finished. When you've got joints that are going to merge in with the others, rather than leaving it so you've got a feathered joint, it's just tipped and it comes down slightly, cut into it so you've got the full depth of whatever stone you happen to be laying, and then just go again the next day. As long as you're using the same water amount, no issues. Yeah, commercially, I mean, they're not laying porcelain to be fair, but commercially we'll have guys that are mixing maybe 3, 4, 5 bags of this at a time, tipping it out and squeezing it around. Just suggest doing probably 1 to start with see what that's like to play with, and then just go from there, to be honest. But as you can see, it's not difficult. Mix it up, pour it down, take it off.
You talked about, would you use a sponge every time to wet the area first, or would you use a hose?
I'd place it at the top stone. Sometimes you find that you leave the hose on and it'll just keep sucking the moisture in. So hose is okay as long as that water's going somewhere. If it's porcelain, no, you don't want an awful lot of water. Very, very fine mist, and that's it. Natural stone, sometimes easier to leave the hose on and just keep it going that way. Yeah.
Blow the joins out after that, or
Natural stone you won't have to, because the stone will be sucking it out, but if you've got porcelain you might find that you need to, yeah. Just because it's going to fill it up otherwise. And that's Flowpoint.